My name's Aaron. I took the overnight slot at WQBRN, old AM station that barely reaches past the county line because no one else wanted it. The building used to be a funeral home, which was a joke until the first time the heat clanked on and the vents exhaled like a sleeper, clearing their throat. That was last October, first frost. Tonight is colder. The hallway has that bitter metallic smell it gets when you've been breathing your own recycled air for too many hours. Everything hums, everything ticks, and if you let your mind soften, around the edges, the hums and ticks become sentences. I run the midnight to 4 a.m. show. It's music, mostly. Sometimes calls. Station board is a relic. Big sliders that fight you, an on-air bulb like a cartoon apple. I keep a space heater under the desk that scorches my knees and leaves the rest of me shivering. To my right is the emergency alert. Unitan, ugly gray box with a tiny screen wired into the county system. It's the only modern thing we have. When the county issues a storm warning or an amber alert, it interrupts whatever I'm playing and blares its tone. I tested it once. The tone made my teeth ache. Like it wasn't a sound, but a shape being hammered into my skull. At 1:13 a.m., the box chirped, but the tone didn't play. A chirp, like a motion sensor catching a moth. The screen flickered and spat out a single line of text. Listen closely. I laughed. Sleep deprivation makes everything ridiculous and reached to reset it. The box chirped again, and my headphones crackled. Aaron, a woman whispered, breathless. Don't let the transmitter switch to backup. They're already in the stairwell. Keep the door locked. Don't cough. Something inside me iced. Over. I didn't touch the board. I didn't breathe. A mic was livered. Lead glowing in, I cut it out of pure instinct, sliding the fader to 0. Switched to a long jazz sax track to cover the dead air. Then I listened. The voice had the damp echo of the stairwell, the way concrete swallows sound and flings it back. The emergency box isn't a two-way radio. It doesn't take calls. It doesn't address me. Not by name. Not ever. I checked the hallway, the stairwell. Door at the far end was shut. The glass in the wired square window reflected only my own silhouette. No one was there. I locked the studio door anyway, sweating now. It's the heater searing my shins. Maybe it was a prank, some bored ham radio freak doing a patch. Maybe I actually fell asleep for 10 seconds and dreamed it. I told myself both of those things until the box chirped again. 2 minutes, the voice whispered, and the signal broke into a dense hiss, like rain on aluminum. Then nothing. I stared at the little gray screen as if I could will it to flash again. The sax solo fizzed in my headphones. I thought about calling the county's emergency coordinator, a guy named Greg who told me at the setup briefing that, yes, tornadoes were possible here, and no, they didn't sound like trains. But my mind snagged on the word stairwell and hooked. There, the station has 2 sets of stairs, the main ones near the front, and the narrow back stairs that were once, according to the owner, where they moved bodies discreetly. If someone was in either, I wouldn't hear them until they were right at the door. I know. I stay. Why not grab my bag and go? The answer is simple and dumb. I didn't want to be the kind of person who runs because a box chirped. How you get laughed out of county radio. It's how you get replaced by a syndicated playlist and a voice-tracked host who records all their chatter at noon and pretends it's live at 3a.m. So I sat, and I waited and I counted the seconds. On the clock at 1:15. There was a rattle from the hallway like someone running a fingernail down corrugated metal. The heat kicked on a heartbeat later, carrying a smell this time. Wet leaves, faint mold. I inched the studio door open and peered down the hall. Breathing. That was the weirdest thing. I could hear breathing, but it wasn't in the hall or the vents. It was just behind me where nothing was. I turned. The glass of the on-air light showed only my face, wide-eyed, pale, mouth open, alone. The emergency box chirped again, faint as a bird at dawn. I pounced back to it. "Do not open the back door," the woman said. I could hear her pressing herself to concrete, trying to make her voice as small as possible. They see the edges of motion. If you're still, they don't count you. Are you? I whispered, before remembering none of this was on our line, none of it was going out to the listeners. Or maybe all of it was. The board is this antique with a lot of dead switches that might still do something.
My fingers hovered.
Over sliders like I was defusing a bomb. I shouldn't have asked who. I should have asked when. The stairwell door at the far end of the hall wobbled just once and went still. The building is old. Things wobble. Things settle. I repeated those facts to myself, syllable by syllable, until the words lost their shapes. Music. Ended. I queued up a pre-recorded ad for a hardware store, because terror doesn't cancel sponsorship, and let the jingle chew a hole in the silence. I wrote down what I'd heard, because that's what we do in a station. You log everything, in case you have to explain it later to a boss, a sheriff, curious FCC person with a clipboard. 113A's chirp voice addressed me by name. Stairwell keep. Door locked on cough. My handwriting went smaller and tighter, like it was trying to hide. Took my hand off the pen and froze, under the heater's dry drone, under the building's sighs, under the vinyl crackle from the turntable I never use. I heard it coming up the back stairs, not footsteps exactly, not weight on wood, more like a series of soft brushstrokes, up and up. You know how a cat can walk and you don't hear its paws, only its whiskers touching things. It was like that, feather-light and exploratory. I hated my own pulse for pounding. It felt like an arrow pointing to where I was. I turned the studio mic back on because I had a sudden conviction that whatever the voice was, whatever the box was doing, the station itself, was the only thing keeping me visible to the right people. If anyone is awake, I said, and heard how thin and awake without coffee my voice sounded, call the station. Just say hello. I want to make sure the line's working. It was the only thing I could think to do that would make a noise their kind might not count. The phone didn't ring. I left it live, waited through one song, then another. A local ad for a car wash stuttered and died halfway through its jingle, like the tape had clipped. I leaned forward to check the deck, and the back door latch clicked, not opening, just testing, as if a tongue had reached out and tapped. It, tasting metal, I killed the lights without thinking. The studio fell into the glow of LED meters and the greenish failing fluorescence out in the hall. Something in the stairwell took a long, interested breath. The emergency box chirped again. I wanted to cry with relief. I pressed my ear to it like it was a seashell. Don't speak, the woman said, so soft I could have believed I was imagining. They will move toward your mouth. Just listen. Her breathing slowed. I matched it. My eyes had adjusted enough to see my own hands on the board. A slider trembled because my finger was trembling. It will see the on-air light, she said. It likes red. Thinks red means feeding. What is it? I wanted to think at her. What saw the light? But I didn't speak. I counted my breaths like stepping stones. Whatever was on the other side of that door, if anything shifted its weight. It has an extra joint, she said, voice breaking, all the effort of whispering like a scream suppressed. Where the shin should only bend forward, their shins bend backward. It makes them tall, Ma. The signal scattered into static. From the back stairs came a sound I could not make sense of until much later. At the time, my brain labeled it, something fell. That was wrong. Someone dropped something from very high and caught it with the wrong part of their leg. I turned the heater off and the sound of the building changed. No white noise to drown anything. The old place breathed, and far away above, below I heard something answer. 3 slow taps. Like a coin touching railings one by one, my phone finally lit up with a call. Caller ID, private number. Like a fool, grateful, or scared. Fool, I answered. A QBR, in my own voice. From the other end of the line, whispered, don't cough. I didn't drop the phone. I placed it back in its cradle as politely as if it were a guest's hand. My tongue felt like it had been cut and put back in the wrong place. I knew things then, knew them the way you know that you were being watched. In a crowd, there was a second stairwell we forgot in the briefing. There was a system only half the county knew about. There were voices coming from what was about to happen, feeding themselves backward into our present through the box, the lines. The plumbing of signals, the stairwell latch clicked again. This time it didn't test. It turned, I don't know. What chased me first? Fight flight feels like a foot on your chest. I hurled myself at the studio door and shoved it closed, locked with a little snap, prim and stupid. I dragged a filing cabinet toward it, caught my hip on the desk, knocked a coffee over, and felt hot liquid bite my skin. I kept expecting the door to slam open and the space beyond to fill with height and wrong joints. It never did. The latch stuttered softly, then quieted. I turned the mic up and aimed my mouth away from it. I told my listeners a story about a song, any song. The way you do when there's dead air and you need words to glue it back together. I said a man named Roland wrote it for his wife, I said. The saxophone was an apology that didn't work. The lies fell out of me in sequence, a string of beads. And behind every word I listened, the emergency box's screen flickered. One more line of text popped up, dim like it had to fight its way through. When you look, count. My mouth moved before my mind. Now it wasn't a command. It was a permission slip folded and slipped under the door. I looked at the hallway. Window, something tall and pale, had stopped halfway down the stairs. Its shin bent the wrong way, where the step met its leg, like a hinge playing backward. It had paused, I realized, because the on-air light leaked under the studio door and pooled. On the floor like blood, the light wasn't actually red, it's more of a warm orange butt in the glass reflection. In the tired early hours blur of my eyes, it was a red coin shining on the floor. One long hand touched the tile, not fingers, or like a bundle of white sticks banded with shadows. I counted because the box told me to, and because counting makes terror smaller. 1, 2, 3. The hand withdrew. The latch relaxed, as if its hunger had been pinched and tucked away. The stairwell went still. I stayed in that chair until 4:01 a.m., and Greg showed up with the security guy. And I cried in a voice I didn't recognize while they pretended nothing was wrong inside an old building that creaked like a boat. The day shift came and pretended not to know I'd wet through my jeans because fear doesn't respect your dignity. No one checked the back stairs. They joked and hugged me and wheeled my chair away from the board because I was shaking hard, enough to make the meters jump. I slept on my couch that day with every light on. I told myself I'd quit. I told myself I'd forget. I told myself the voice was a prank or a concussion in the air at 10:42 that night. The county sent a test alert to all our devices. I saw it on my phone, on the emergency box screen, on a fireman's pager I'd forgotten we left near the board. The test said, "This is a scheduled test of the emergency alert system. Nitrogen monoxide action is required." Underneath, smaller, like an accident, like a programmer accidentally pasted a note in the wrong field, it said, "No coughing. Part 2, if you need to take a breath, do it now. Sit up. Roll your shoulders." This part sticks. 2 nights later, I went back. Don't look at me like that. You would too. If something presses its face to the glass of your life, if it breathes and fogs your name, you either move or you learn. It's rhythm, and besides, rent exists. WQBR does not pay well, but it pays by the hour. Hours happen at night. I brought a thermos of tea, a new space heater because the old one smelled like burnt toast, and a pocket metronome my brother used when he was learning guitar. Counting calmed me. A device that made a sound to keep time. Felt like armor. I placed it by the emergency box and set it to 72 BPM. Resting heart. Tick, tick, tick. I also brought a door wedge. Simple things help. The wedge was bright yellow, rubber, mean little teeth. I jammed it under the studio door. The metal bit the rubber and held. If the latch turned, it would have to lift 2 inches to clear the wedge, and I would. Hear that? I was listening for lifting now, the way a smoker listens for sirens. At 12:27, the alert box chirped. I was prepared for it this time. I had a notepad and an ink pen that didn't skip. "Okay," I whispered, "because sometimes you speak to let your body know that a voice is still yours. Okay, I'm here." Nothing for a full minute. The metronome ticked like a polite foot. Then the speaker let out a sound that wasn't a tone. It was a white noise, something like the station's own roofline dragging against a cloud. A woman's voice threaded through, not the one from before. Younger, raspy, crying, basement, she said. They like the basement go up. I pictured the building's basement, which used to be a prep room for the funeral home. The floor drains, sloped gutter to the big double doors. The story about how, before the station bought it, kids dared each other to go down there, and a boy came back with his arm covered in white smudges, like handprints that didn't quite know where fingers ended. I'm on the second floor, I whispered, then realized whispering wasn't how this worked. If the signal was time, it wouldn't answer me now. It would answer me when. Don't go near the soda machine, the girl said, laughing a little hysterically, like she knew how crazy that sounded. You can see them in the glass first. They think it's a river. The studio has a soda machine. In the hall, I'd never seen my reflection in it without distortion. Tonight, the glass was black and slick as oil. No names, the girl said, and her voice thickened, as if the air around her had turned to soup. Names make mouths open. If you want to keep your shut, don't say your static tutor. I turned the metronome slightly faster and watched the soda machine from my chair until my eyes watered. At 1:03, I saw it, not the thing, its wake, like heat shimmer over asphalt.
No.
The glass bowed a little inward, as if someone leaned on the machine from the other side. Something long slid behind the glass, making a pale streak, then nothing but my own dumb outline holding breath. The phone rang. I stared at it like it might bite. Caller ID, private number again. I didn't pick up this time. 3 rings, then silence. 3 taps from somewhere below. Tick, tick, tick. At 1:19, the stairwell latch did its tasting click. My mouth flooded with a copper taste. I turned off the space heater to remove a layer of noise. The building's internal sound grew clearer, like lifting a blanket off a body. Beneath everything, I heard the same oversized joint shifting its future weight, lining itself up with a step. The emergency. Box chirped, but no voice came. Instead, the tiny screen scrolled text so fast, I had to snap a photo to read it later. I'll tell you what it said. First, you have to understand what the EAS tech explained to me after all this, what he confessed when I finally cornered him at a diner and made him tell me why the system felt like a Ouija planchette. He said that after a blackout 5 years ago, they installed redundancies. If the main transmitter loses power, it switches to a backup tower outside town. If both fail, it can piggyback on any commercial signal in Range AM FM. Even NOAA weather bands like Ivy creeping up whatever wall is nearest. He said the system compresses audio into bursts and unpacks it at the other end. The clock's matter and drift is the enemy. He said if a clock is wrong, if it runs fast or slow, the messages arrive oddly, smear over each other, or decant late. He said a lot of technical things with his hands. I don't believe those are what opened the door between now and later. I think it's simpler. I think the county bolted a funnel to time and told it to sing. The screen's text what I read. Later from the photo said, count 3/7, 9. Do not break the rhythm when you feel your name in your teeth. Bite Downey didn't understand the last line until too late. For 10 minutes, the stairwell and I negotiated. I turned the studio lights off. It pressed closer, liking the red coin under the door. I turned the metronome louder, and it paused as if listening through the glass of a fish tank. I said nothing. I let the record spool out and let the pre-recorded spots run. I clung to the tick like a raft at 1:31. The soda machine's compressor kicked on, a deep thrumming that hid smaller sounds. In that cover, something moved fast. The wedge under the door shoved forward as if someone on the other side had nudged it with their toe. A breath slid through the gap at the threshold. It was cold and smelled like an attic. I counted 1, 2, 3. Then because the note said 3/7, Nini kept going. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I slowed enough to make the count smear over the metronome's steady tick, creating a rhythm that wasn't quite right. My grandmother used to clap like that when a neighbor passed a hearse off the beat so the dead wouldn't know how to follow. The wedge held. The breath retreated. Something paced away down the hall with those feather-light whisker steps. At 2:04, the box chirped again. The older woman's voice returned, threaded with the girl's as if the signal had doubled. Like 2 maps printed on one page, roads crossing at wrong angles. It likes copies, the girl said. It likes duplicates. It likes to put its face where yours should be. Don't answer the phone, the older woman said. If you do, you'll make the loop shorter. It rang again anyway. Private number. I didn't move. Aaron. 3 voices whispered from the speaker grill all at once. The woman, the girl, and God help me. When the ad ends, don't breathe. Hold at 7. Pedite down. The car wash jingle warbled through the speakers, and I realized with a bizarre, giddy terror that if the loop was shorter now, it meant my voice was closer to the mouth of the trap. I could feel my name in my teeth the way you feel a word on the tip of your tongue, I imagined. Biting down on it and leaving an impression like a dentist's mold, the ad ended. I didn't breathe. 7 counts. The metronome ticked. On count 5, the stairwell door handle turned, quick and irritated, like a person opening a bathroom someone forgot to lock. The rubber wedge squealed. On 6, the on-air light flickered and brightened, that red coin blazing like fresh meat. On 7, something long and pale fell forward against the door with a sound like a deer hitting a windshield. I bit down. Actually bit. My teeth pressed to my tongue, and I tasted blood. My name, Iran, stopped trying to jump out of my mouth. I had never known until that moment how names could be leashes. I had never known how many little places there are in a building where sound can hide and wait. The door held. The sound scraped away. The soda machine's glass bowed, then snapped back as if whatever leaned left. I started laughing then, quietly, a hysterical relief laugh that felt like untying a knot. I wanted to tell everyone everything. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go upstairs and find the backup transmitter and rip its cord out of the wall with my bare hands. The emergency box chirped one last time at 2:19. The screen didn't flicker. Speaker didn't hiss. The message unfolded as if it had always been there on the inside of my skull. When you leave, do you not use the front stairs? Count 3 7ths, 9 between each landing. If you hear a cough, go backy-packed, thermos, notebook, metronome. I left the wedge in. Placed like a trap in a cartoon that keeps the monster stuck forever, aided open the back door to the hall. The soda machine's light made the floor look like water. The glass reflected a tall silhouette that wasn't quite mine. I didn't look at it. I looked at the floor tiles and counted 3, then 7, then 9, with my steps between landings. The rhythm made my head feel weird, like turning in place too fast and stopping. First landing, I heard a cough. Not human, not throat. You know that cough a deer makes, that explosive wheeze? Like that, but shaped like a word almost, as if something near me had learned cough from listening to humans and only got the bones of it right. I went back, because the message said to. I went backward 1 landing, heartbeat climbing my throat, and counted again. 3 7 9. It's hard to explain how counting feels when the numbers don't feel like numbers. They feel like doors that only open if you knock a pattern. Second landing, the cough came again, but farther. I kept going. The glass in the stairwell window showed a slice of the night outside parking lot. Radio tower, the blinking red light up there like a star having a slow heart attack. I wanted that night so much I could have eaten it with a spoon. Ground floor. The lobby smelled like old carpet and the sweet chemical breath of those waxed floor tiles schools used to have. The front door was 5 steps away. Something moved. Behind me on the stairs, with a sound not like footsteps, but like someone sliding a long box down the steps very carefully. I did not turn. I counted 3, 7, 9. And when I reached for the front door handle, ignoring the message, because terror makes. You stupid and stubborn, it felt like biting on Tingfo. The cough right behind my left ear saved me. It flared the back of my neck with cold and made my hand snap back. I went to the back exit instead, to the loading dock that used to serve hearses. The lock stuck. I counted 3, 7, 9 under my breath, and the bolt rasped like a man waking in a bad mood. The door opened. Air hit me, night air, unscented, vast, and I ran and didn't look back. I got home. I put my phone in the freezer like I'd seen people do in movies when they don't want it to listen. I slept with the metronome ticking until morning and woke with the taste of my name still in my mouth, like I'd been chewing it all night. You want me to tell you I quit the station then? That I did the smart thing? I did not. I went back. Fear becomes a schedule. Because after a few nights without the voice, you convince yourself it was a weird patch of weather. Because the guy from the county smiled and shrugged, because the day people laughed. Because they told me the soda machine had been unplugged for years. Here's the part that matters to you more than anything I've said, at 3:06 this morning. While I was playing a song by a man who wrote it as an apology for a thing that cannot be apologized for, the emergency box chirped twice, and the private number rang at the same time. I answered the phone without meaning to and heard my own voice. Older by the brittleness in it, say, "If you're listening to this, don't look out the nearest window yet," which means you've always been here with me, and I have always been saying this to you. The loop isn't shorter anymore. It's closed. That's why, when I said don't look, you felt the pressure in your eyes, the itch to disobey. That's why the red light on whatever device you're using seems brighter now. It likes red, thinks red means feeding now. Look, count 3, then 7, then 9. If you see your own face in the reflection phone screen, dark window, microwave, door end, it looks a half-inch taller than it should be if the shin on the one that's you bends wrong. If your name rises in your mouth like a bubble, bite down, don't cough, and whatever presses its hand, its bundle of white sticks too. The other side of the glass, whatever clicks at your latch, whatever tries to make your mouth its mouth, do not open the front stairs. Find the back way. Count between landings. If you hear a cough, go back. The song is ending. The ad is about to play. I'll tell you the rest when the box chirps, when the red coin brightens. When you're ready to stop pretending the reflection is only you, tick, tick, tick.